Welcome to This Week in Local, a Localogy podcast featuring lively conversations about the local digital ecosystem, hosted by Localogy analysts Mike Bolin and Charles Lachlan.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Local. I am your co-host, Mike Bolin, joined by my other co-host, Charles Lachlan. Hey, Charlie, how's it going?
Mike, it's going pretty well. Thank you.
Nice. So tell us what you're looking at this week.
Well, I recently wrote something I thought was pretty interesting about a regulatory move out of Europe that got some coverage, and we wrote about it as well. And it's called the Digital Marketing Act. It's the European Union Digital Marketing Act. It was passed, I think, back in 2022. And I think there was a period where the targeted companies, and there are 6 companies that are targeted by this act, that give them time to come into compliance. And then sort of as of early March, I believe it went into effect. And then soon after, the first enforcement action has been filed against Apple, Meta, and Alphabet, which is, of course, Google, essentially. And I think the EU has been after big tech for a while. I think we kind of know that they've been wanting to break up big tech for a while. They see big tech, and I use that term sort of loosely, as a threat, or at least a barrier to homegrown European. There's a xenophobic thread to this. Let's be candid. Homegrown European startups that are focused on search or whatever else these companies do, having an opportunity when there's so much market domination per their point of view by these companies. And so while this enforcement action is focused on Apple, Meta, and Alphabet, the alphabet soup of companies, actually 6 companies are named in the act as quote-unquote gatekeeper companies, or companies that have so much domination in their particular lane per the EU that they're sort of under extra scrutiny to make sure that they don't have a boot on the neck of European startups, essentially. Now, that's my interpretation of it. Someone might disagree, but the 6 companies, there's no argument here, are Apple, Meta, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, and interestingly, ByteDance. So that's 5 out of 6 are essentially American companies. 1 is Chinese. So this is clearly a way for the EU to use their regulatory power to basically say, if you're engaged in what we consider anti-competitive behavior, we are going to come after you, and that's what they're doing now. And the potential penalties are quite severe. If they're found, in violation of this, there is a potential for up to 10% of annual revenue to be subject to fine. So, and I wrote a piece about this earlier, and what I said, in the piece was, so what does a hefty fine mean to a company that could afford to colonize Mars? And that's a little hyperbole, I'll admit, but these are very big companies with lots of revenue. So just to put one example out.
The scale
is incredible, potential.
We're talking hundreds of billions.
Oh, yeah.
With,
Meta had 135, I just quickly Googled Meta's 2023 top line revenue, 135 billion. So 10%
it's
of
in
that.
Hundreds of billions for all these folks. So 10%
it's into billions. It's billions. It's into the billions. Well,
but hundreds of billions.
Yeah, hundreds of billions. Take 10% of hundreds of billions, you still have billions.
Yeah.
And
right.
so this is potentially painful, and not. And what's interesting, there's a couple interesting things. One is that the chief regulator, the European chief regulator, is retiring, I believe, at the end of this year. I had her name in front of me. It's not in front of me at the moment, but Margaret Vestager. And she is apparently, her term expires in November, so she'll be leaving at the end of the year. So the clock is running in terms of whether she wants a scalp, essentially, before she moves on to her next whatever it is. And, could you imagine a bigger scalp than, collecting $13 billion from Meta, or, triple that I didn't look up the other two right offhand, but they're all in multiple hundreds of billions of dollars in annual revenue, and these are big ass numbers, to put it mildly. What's kind of interesting, and it's sort of, they're kind of targeting what they consider anti-competitive behaviors, and one, they sort of cite a few different ones. One of them, which is they call self-preferencing. For example, if Google were to point a searcher to its own flight search versus Booking.com or something like that, that's one of the behaviors. And then another one is something they call anti-steering. So, if a company wants to steer a user to make a transaction on their site to avoid sort of paying the duties through the App Store, to Apple, that is, a behavior that, Apple discourages. And if they see evidence that Apple is penalizing that behavior, to them, that's a violation of the act. So
Side loading.
Yeah. So they're kind of trying to find examples of these things in order to cite these companies for doing things that they consider anti-competitive or harmful to European-based portals of whatever sort. So like if a European-based booking site is, getting penalized by Apple for this, that, or the other thing, or if Google is steering away from a European-based, e-commerce site of some sort and pointing to its own, property instead, that's, that's behavior that they're scrutinizing and looking for examples of, and are trying to penalize. So, I don't know how scared, Apple, Meta, and Alphabet are over this. They did not comment. My guess is that they have teams of lawyers, and their teams of lawyers are working hard on this. Where this goes, who knows? What's kind of interesting is it's kind of happening at the same time that the Apple antitrust lawsuit in the U.S. is happening.
Yeah.
So is there something in the air now in a regulatory legal sense that says, okay, we've let this go on long enough, whatever it is? There's definitely strong opinions on both sides of this as to whether they truly are monopolistic companies, whether they're truly predatory companies, et cetera, or whether they're just doing business and they happen to be big,
Yeah.
So I don't know what you think, Mike.
I think that's a key distinction because U.S. antitrust law, I'm not sure about Europe, I think it's similar, is that it's not illegal to have a massive market share. Right. But if you utilize unfair practices to maintain that market share, that's where it comes in. And that's when you get into things like self-preferencing. That's a good example. Now, focusing on Apple, they're getting it from all ends. They're going to have a lot of days in court in the near future. I read a lot of the sort of the U.S. case, the Justice Department's case against Apple. I think a lot of it is actually fairly weak because I think that Apple has a strong argument for a lot of the things it's doing. Like, for example, one aspect of this is how Apple's sort of walled garden environment, broadly speaking, is, shuts out a lot of competition. Now, Apple has a pretty strong argument that says, hey, our product, the quality of our product is so much better than everyone else's, and we have strong privacy controls. What are you trying to do? Turn us into Android, where it's just a wild west if anyone can load something on there and it's filled with a bunch of spyware? Like, we need to keep up these walls in order to have, and whether or not that's true or disingenuous, I think it is a very defensible argument that Apple has. Right. And across the board, there are several things that are in this complaint that I believe are rather weak, just because I know Apple's argument against a lot of these hold a lot of water. And this goes against sometimes the knee jerk that, like the Justice Department is punishing success and market share. Yeah. And it's not really that. I mean, it's about whether or not you're engaging in unfair practices to maintain a monopoly. Right. But and the story's different across the board for Google. And another point I want to make is that often the regulatory bodies will, for PR reasons or whatever, sort of try to speak for the small guy and say we're trying to protect.
That's clearly the EU example.
Yeah. And I think that the small guy is sitting there saying, like, no, like the small guy usually likes the presence of Google, Apple, et cetera, because they ride on their wake in terms of
it's
their
market
innovation.
access for them. It's market access.
Market access. Their platforms, they do all the heavy lifting and the functionality. You can just pick up their API or their software for whatever thing and build on top of it. Now, that's not the case for like there's a sort of middle layer of the market that definitely doesn't like to see Google around. And you would point to companies like Yelp, where their traffic is being disintermediated by some of that self-selection. And that's actually a good case that companies like Yelp are making. But the small guy, the tool sets, the platforms, the exit potential, like take away the exit potential. And it's like, why am I doing this? So I think that I always look at that side of it too, that like, don't speak on behalf of the small guy. You don't know what you're talking about.
Well, how does a small app developer do anything without an app store?
Right.
You know?
And the like you said, the access to the audience, the access to the scale, the opportunity to build something that, if good, can be touched by, the scale of global iPhone users, which is about 2 billion, or iOS users, about 2 billion users globally.
Yeah.
When you add up all Apple products.
Well, what is interesting, and it wasn't in anything I wrote or necessarily have read about the EU action, but you kind of made the privacy point about Apple. I've kind of heard it sort of in the ether that did Tim Cook put too much stock in his privacy policy protecting him from this kind of thing, And I think
irony, the irony is that the EU is so privacy happy, privacy friendly. Obsessed with privacy. And in this case, they're putting their anti-competitive card above the privacy thing, because you would think they'd be embracing Apple's privacy position.
Their privacy position didn't save them, I guess, is where kind of this comes out.
Yeah. They still got the suit. Or the scrutiny.
They're getting hammered in Europe. They're getting hammered in the U.S. for slightly different reasons, perhaps. But I think that the privacy position, I think, was seen within Apple. I'm making a little bit of an inference here that was going to be the thing that
the shield
that's kind of placated regulators.
Yeah. Well, in addition to that, I think that Apple's leaning into privacy, like we're the privacy first company, is smart as hell. And I thought that before this.
Not saying it wasn't smart, but it didn't seem to save them. Yeah.
Right. But this situation notwithstanding, I think it was smart for them because they are the only company that can raise their hand and say that, and you believe them from a marketing and like a consumer perspective, not regulators, where you can get consumers' trust, and Apple can say, look, I don't need your data to sell you an iPhone.
Right.
Google, Facebook, Amazon, they cannot say, I don't need your data to.
Especially if you're in the AI game.
Core business. Yeah, right.
If you're in the AI game, you need everyone's data. But and in fairness, Apple's not being hit specifically on privacy grounds on any of these things. These are anti-competitive concerns as well. So
true, but the shield that they were hoping for is not working as well as they thought. Is your point?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, Mike. Why don't we just end it there? Why don't you read us out?
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. Thanks, everyone, for listening. This has been This Week in Local. Stay tuned every week for more episodes. You can find the show on all major podcast networks and find out more at Localogy.com. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Your engagement helps others find us. And if you're interested in being a guest or sponsor, you can email us at podcast@Localogy.com. So I'm Mike Boland with Charles Laughlin. Our producer is Dara Sweat. So thanks for listening, and see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Localogy's This Week in Local with Mike Boland and Charles Laughlin. Be sure to subscribe for more.